going on, everyone? Shiz Oh Network here, back again with yet some more SOG reviews. Now, keep in mind, I know I do primarily reviews on this show, but I kind of wanted to spice things up a little bit and just make it so where every once in a while I want to like showcase my retro gaming collection, which is funny because I've been retro collecting for 10 years, and it took a while for it to get to this magnitude. And even then, this is not even all of it. Like, I still got more lying around my room, but that's besides the point. Like, I've been doing this for so long that it's crazy how just now I'm finally, like, showcasing my collection. I figured to start off the occasion, I'm probably going to just showcase my Sega Saturn collection, my North American Sega Saturn collection. I'm probably going to do the Japanese ones in a separate video, but to start us off, we're just going to do the North American Sega Saturn collection. I feel like that's the perfect way to start off the series, okay? So, it's just me just sitting here, you know, just showing you guys my collection and talking a bit about them. So, I hope you guys do enjoy this video, and if you guys do, just make sure you guys leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button and leave the notification bell so that you'll be notified for when I upload new videos. Plus, it helps spread these videos around the YouTube algorithm. So it would definitely be much appreciated if you could do that. But with that being said, let's start out with the first game. Our first game, we got Battle Arena Toshinden Remix, which it's one of the earliest 3D fighting games ever made. Like, this was back when, you know, 3D models and fighting games was unheard of. But this one took it to a whole new level. Like, the whole game was entirely 3D. I mean, Virtua Fighter was obviously out by the time this game hit the market, but this one was entirely 3D and it was weapons-based. You could argue that it played a major role in inspiring the Soul Calibur series, which indirectly it kind of did, given the fact that it is weapons-based and the fact that you could freely move around. Even though it's not the best game objectively, it's still an interesting look back in the early history of 3D fighting games, nonetheless. So, on to our next one, we have Bust a Move 2. This game's really fun. Like, honestly, as someone who loves puzzle games, like, I play games like Dr. Robotnik's Mimi Machine, Columns, you know, those are just a few examples of puzzle games I've played. You know, I obviously, like, enjoy puzzle games a lot because I've streamed them a couple times on my Twitch and everything because part of my retro streams. But I'm surprised that I never did Bust a Move, though, because Bust a Move is honestly, like, it's literally one of the best puzzle games ever made. Like, and especially, I love the Sega Saturn port of Bust a Move 2. I especially love this version of the game. So, if you love puzzle games, give this one a shot. Definitely give this one a shot. It's also got a really, really catchy soundtrack as well. I'm not sure if Bust a Move will ever return in the future, but I think it should. You know what I mean? So here's our next one. You'll probably have noticed that we're doing this in alphabetical order, by the way. Next up on our list is Clockwork Knight. Now, a lot of people actually don't like this game, which is funny because I know it was a Sega Saturn launch title, but there's a reason why people didn't like it that much, and that's because, like, they felt like the graphics were very dated and it was, I guess, campy, I guess. But honestly, I gotta defend this game. It's actually really fun. I mean, it's also really difficult too. I mean, it's kind of ironic how you always got, like, the child-friendly platformers always being the hardest, right? But with Clockwork Knight, though, I have to defend this game. This game is actually really good if you look past its flaws. Like, obviously, it has its flaws, but it's definitely, in my personal opinion, one of the best platformers on the Sega Saturn. There were different kinds of platform games on there. Even some people will even say, like, die-hard Saturn fans, like games like Estelle are better than Clockwork Knight, which I could totally see why. But let's not discredit Clockwork Knight for what it was trying to do. Like, it kind of reminds me a lot of Toy Story, and that's probably the reason why I love this game. So Clockwork Knight is definitely worthy of being in your Sega Saturn collection. So I would definitely give this one a go. Okay, so next up on our list, we got Darius Gaiden. Darius Gaiden is easily one of the hardest yet most fun spaceship shooters on the Sega Saturn, and it was made by Taito. So I'm pretty sure some of you have probably played this game on Taito Legends. I believe it was on Taito Legends 2. I might be wrong. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But This game is really fun. Like, it's kind of like all the other Saturn shooters, where basically you play through the game, but there's like multiple levels that you could like play through. I think you played like 7 levels each, but depending on which level you pick or how you run through the game depends on the outcome. You know what I mean? Like, there's different ways of running through these games, and they're very short too. So it's like you can beat them within like maybe 30 to 40 minutes at the most. But that's what makes them replayable. And plus, you also have all these power-ups and everything. Like, I love Darius Gaiden. I really love it a lot. It's got like this weird robotic aquarium type feel. Like, a lot of the main bosses and even like all the main enemies in the game are like basically fish type enemies. Like, they're like robotic fish or whatever. It's kind of weird, but it's Taito. What do you expect? Alright, so next up we got on our list, we have Daytona USA. So Daytona USA, much like Clockwork Knight, was a launch title for the Sega Saturn. And it was also a Sega arcade game. And that was the thing with the Sega Saturn, is that they marketed the system with not only being a 2D powerhouse. Well, I mean, originally it was going to be a 2D powerhouse, but then they wanted to not only make that, they not only wanted to still have that aspect of the system be like relevant, but they also wanted to port a lot of their famous arcade titles on the Saturn as well. You know what I mean? So Daytona USA was basically one of the first to do it. And even though this version of the game is graphically, it's definitely graphically, it's not as good as the arcade version, what I'm trying to say. It's inferior to the arcade version. But if you're just looking for a Sega arcade title that's still fun to play, like, the only thing about this game is that it's not as graphically superior as the arcade version. But other than that, the game is still good. But there is an improved version of this game, which leads me to my next one, and that is Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Now, like I said, the graphics still not as good as the arcade, but what it does is that it's a graphical improvement off of the original Daytona USA. It also adds more tracks, it adds more vehicles as well. So it kind of also redid the soundtrack a little bit too. So that's what I actually like about the Championship Circuit Edition, is that it's basically an update to the original Daytona USA. The original Daytona USA is still a blast from the past that any Sega Saturn fan should have in their collection. But I would still also have this game in your collection just for the sole purpose of collecting. It's pretty cool to have, right? Like I said, it is a graphical improvement off of the original game. I don't want to discredit the original game at all, but definitely give this one... Actually, if you can, get both of them in your collection. They shouldn't be that expensive. Like, I know Daytona USA is like pretty common, at least as far as Saturn games go, so it shouldn't be too hard to find a copy of Daytona USA. I mean, with the Championship Edition, you might wind up paying like maybe a couple more bucks, but other than that, nothing too expensive. I highly doubt that. I only paid like 33 bucks for this game, so it shouldn't be too much. Alright, so we got another Sega arcade title. Next up is another fighting game, Fighting Vipers. I love Fighting Vipers, really do. The day when I first got this game, I bought it for 20 bucks at Game Junkie. And I'm not even gonna lie, I fell in love with it from the moment of playing it, because it's like, it's literally Virtua Fighter, but with a more exaggerated physics, I guess you could say. Like, the engine is more exaggerated than Virtua Fighter is, because Virtua Fighter goes for the more realistic approach, but Fighting Vipers, they just wanted to make it all fun and everything. And plus, they also gave it like a rock metal type theme, where a lot of the characters kind of like have some kind of like musical, I guess you could say gimmick, I guess you could say. But that's what I love about Fighting Vipers. Even though it's the only Fighting Vipers game that we have in America, it's not the only Fighting Vipers game that was ever made. There was a sequel that came out on the Dreamcast, but that was only released internationally. It never came out in the US, which is very unfortunate. So that makes that game very valuable for collectors. But the original Fighting Vipers is still a classic. It runs at a very solid frame rate, full 60 frames per second and everything. It's really, really fun. Like, if you love early 3D fighting games, Fighting Vipers is definitely one that I would give a shot, especially if you also love Virtua Fighter. Like, if you love Virtua Fighter, then you'll definitely love Fighting Vipers, which hopefully Sega would probably bring them back in the future. Who knows? They were probably a crossover of Virtua Fighter and, you know, Fighting Vipers again. Which, to be fair, they already did that, but we'll talk about that game another time. Okay? So here's the next one. Another Sega Saturn spaceship shooter, Galactic Attack. The real name for this game, which was another game that was made by Taito, much like Darius Gaiden, the Galactic Attack is actually renamed from a famous Taito game called Ray Force, and it was also called Layer Section as well in the international versions. And then in the US, they changed the title to Galactic Attack. But despite the name changes, it's literally the exact same game. It's Ray Force. It's easily one of the most fun and probably also one of the best looking shoot 'em ups on the Sega Saturn. Darius Gaiden is also one of the best looking ones too, but this one also is too. I also like the fact that it still sticks to that vertical arcade type look, almost like you're playing it on an arcade machine, which was a gimmick for many arcade ports at the time. This game, much like Darius Gaiden, also has like a specific pattern where, you know, you run through the game and there's different levels you can do, and you know, you can run through the game as many times as you want and however you want it to do. So it's almost limitless as short as it is. But as I said, just like Darius Gaiden, it's really, really hard. So if you're up for the challenge, definitely go ahead and pick up Galactic Attack, because this is easily one of the best shoot 'em ups on the Saturn, alongside Darius Gaiden, Radiant Silver Gun, Thunder Force, Salamander, and all that. Next up on our list, we have Gex. The original Gex by Crystal Dynamics, as in, yes, Tomb Raider Crystal Dynamics, yes. So this game, the only memories I have of Gex was playing Enter the Gecko on the PlayStation 1, but I never played the original Gex until I bought the Saturn version. The Saturn version, it's okay. I mean, it's not like one of those platform games where it's like, you want to play it over and over again unless you really love Gex that much, but you know, for me personally, I think it's a decent one. It's a decent platform game, not exactly one that I would probably put the most hours into. Like, honestly, I love Clockwork Knight more than I love this game, so I would say that if you like Gex, definitely give this one a shot. Definitely give this one. Alright, so next up on our list, we have Madden NFL 97. In other words, nobody gives a crap about it. Moving on. Alright, next up on our collection, we got Mech Warrior 2. I also happen to own the PS1 version. It was an old PC game from the 90s, and it's exactly what you see. You're playing as a giant robot, and you're like shooting at other robots. And you get all kinds of like various weapons and everything like that. It's really fun. Like, honestly, if you can get used to the controls and everything, that's the only hard part about this game, is that the controls took time to get used to. But when you did, it actually became really fun. Like, you know, I'm not even gonna lie. I think this game is actually pretty fun. Obviously, it's not one where I would, again, put several hours into. But if you just want some explosive action, then why not? Give this one a shot. I mean, after all, you're playing as a giant robot blowing up other robots in the future. Ooh, that's cool. Alright, so next up on our list, and this is something that most of my audience who have followed me for a long time should know that I would automatically have in my collection for any console, and that is Midway's Arcade's Greatest Hits. As someone who grew up playing Midway titles, you know, especially on PS1 and every other console, it's like, of course it was inevitable that I would grab one. Like, I love compilation titles. I love compilation games that consist of like older games compiled onto one disc, or, you know, download or whatever. Like, I love bundled packages. Like, I love compilation games. And part of the reason why I love these more is because I grew up playing them way back in the PS1 era. So to actually play one on the Sega Saturn where it's actually emulated very well, I'll even go as far to say that most of these games, at least on this collection, is emulated better than how they would on PS1. Which, again, is a testament to the Saturn's 2D power. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely composed 2D sprites a lot better than the PS1 did. and no one's gonna deny that, right? So, but this is an interesting pickup if you love playing like the old school Atari, Williams games and stuff like that. This collection has the Atari collection. This was the first one. I actually have the sequel. This one is the Atari Collection 1, and I have the Midway Collection 2 on PS1, which had the early Williams games on it. But the Saturn also had Williams' greatest hits, as did the PS1, and so did the Super Nintendo. So Midway was publishing their compilation titles everywhere, and I was surprised that even though it wasn't as emulated perfectly on Super Nintendo, they still looked really good. So there you go. Another compilation title, knocked right off the bat. Next up on our collection, we got Soviet Strike. Soviet Strike is based off the Strike. This was one of the many games that came from the Strike series by EA, where you're literally playing as a helicopter and you're just shooting enemy bases and everything. Like, it's a game with a very, very simple premise, but also really fun to play if you like blowing stuff up, you know what I mean? Like, I think there was like a game that existed way back on the Genesis called Thunderstrike, which was considered one of the hardest games on that system. And then came Soviet Strike. I think there were other Strike games that came out beforehand. My knowledge is actually very limited, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that Soviet Strike was a part of it. I think Soviet Strike was the first one of the 3D Strike games. And then after Soviet Strike, it was Nuclear Strike, but it never came out on the Saturn because by that point, by the time Nuclear Strike came out, the Saturn had already died. So we got Nuclear Strike on the PS1. So Soviet Strike is, like I said, very fun. It's also really difficult too. Short game, but still really fun. One of the only things I will add to it also is that it does have a really crappy frame rate even on the PS1 version. So just be mindful of that. I think it also originally existed on PC, but again, my knowledge of the Strike series is very limited, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Alright, here we go. Ready? Next up, we have Street Fighter Alpha, Warrior's Dreams. This one is easily one of the best 2D fighting games on the Sega Saturn. Most people will probably say that the Vampire Savior is the best, or even Street Fighter Alpha 2, or some really, really hardcore fans will even say Alpha 3. But honestly, I'm probably in the minority. I don't really like the Saturn version all that much of Alpha 3, but I don't mean to go off topic. But I will say that for the first two Alpha games, they were definitely some of the best that the Saturn has ever had. The original Alpha, even though it only had like, I think it had like only 8 characters in it. I think it was like either 8 or 10, something like that. I don't remember. But I will say that this game is still one of the best on the Saturn. I love the gameplay and everything. Like, the soundtrack is also really fun and everything. It's nice and colorful and everything. It is very fun to play on the 3D control, not on the 3D control pad, I'm sorry, just on the Sega Saturn's control pad, the 6-button control pad, which in my opinion is easily one of the best fight pads to use for fighting games. Like, literally, it's one of the best controllers for fighting games besides arcade sticks. Alongside the DualShock controller, which is also really good for fighting games. I'll even say that the Xbox controller is also pretty good when it comes to fighting games, depending on which one it is. But Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams, definitely one of the best alongside Alpha 2. Alpha 2 was definitely better in my opinion, but never discredit the original. Alright, second to last. We're second to last in our American Sega Saturn collection, and that is Virtua Fighter 2. This is literally a must-have for anybody who owns a Sega Saturn. Like literally, Virtua Fighter 2 is one of the most famous 3D fighting games ever made, but it's also one of the hardest too. I will warn you of that right now. Which is probably one of the turnoffs for some people who play this game. They might think that it's too hard. Which, to be fair, it was an early 90s fighting game that existed in the arcade, so of course the AI would probably kick your ass, right? But even though this game was graphically inferior to the arcade, the arcade version, if you can look up the arcade version if you don't believe me, like just compare them side by side and you'll actually see that the arcade version looks better. But I will say that this is literally the best looking 3D fighting game on the Sega Saturn, so much to the point where it looks better than the Tekken games on PS1. It looks infinitely better than any 3D fighting game that existed on PS1 just by how the texture models were all smooth, looked realistic, and also the animations of the characters were super realistic as well. They literally moved like human and everything. it's just it's just an amazing fighting game to have. Like, it may be difficult, it may kick your ass, but it's so good that it makes you forget about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why this is one of the most famous 3D fighting games ever made. So much so to the point where it was re-released on PSN and Xbox Live at some point. So this is a must-have for your collection. This, Daytona USA, and this leads me to my final game on our Sega Saturn collection, Virtua Cop. Yes, this game alongside Virtua Fighter 2 and Daytona USA were all bundled in one package at one point for the Sega Saturn. I can't remember if it was bundled with the console or if it was just like a separate like bundle that Sega sold. I don't remember, but I do know they were, all three of them were bundled at some point. And Virtua Cop, easily one of the most fun rail shooters you'll ever play. I love Virtua Cop a lot. It also works with the light gun as well. I mean, if you have an old TV, that is, it will definitely work, but if you have a flat screen, good luck trying to get that to work. I know it's possible to do that, but you have to use like a lot of different mechanisms or like mod the TV in a certain way to make it work, but I haven't tried that yet. But regardless, even if you don't have the stunner, you can still play this game with a controller, and even then, it's still really fun. So Virtua Cop, Virtua Fighter 2, and Daytona USA are three Sega Saturn essentials that you need in your collection. It pains me to admit that I don't own Nights into Dreams because I know that's a very famous Sega Saturn game, and that's almost in everybody's favorite Sega Saturn. That's almost everybody's favorite Sega Saturn game. But I do have my reasons for not getting it. It's not because I don't like the game, as it is a platformer, but you know, it's crazy expensive, especially if you buy it with the 3D control pad. But at some point, it will be my goal to acquire that game. So with that being said, if this video was too long, I do apologize. I just like sitting, chilling here and talking about, like, you know, the games I own for my collection and everything. I mean, it's really the first time in more than a while that I've done this. I think the last time I did this was like way back in 2016, I think. I don't remember very well. But other than that, I had lots of fun. I definitely had lots of fun showcasing my North American Sega Saturn collection. I definitely am thrilled to show you guys the rest of my collection and everything. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of SOG Reviews, where I showcase my Sega Saturn collection. There will be more episodes of SOG Reviews coming up. I'm probably going to advance the style of it a little bit more. But I definitely cannot wait to show you more. And in fact, as of the recording of this video, I actually do have more games coming in. So hopefully by then, I can showcase them in another video. So, but I'll see you guys then. Once again, if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you guys leave a like on this video and hit the subscribe button. Definitely will help out a lot, especially with how YouTube's algorithm is. And I'll definitely see you guys in the next review and in the next collection video. Peace. And the Middle East and chicken grease and, you know, all that juicy nonsense.